What's going on, everyone? This Draftagonal here, and today we are back with our Madden 20 Detroit Lions franchise, and today we got some double trouble. Prospect profile, looking at the linebackers and corners, and then we'll also have a mini Week 17 preview, looking at the standings to see the situation where our Lions are in, contending for the playoffs. So we're going to start off with the prospect profiles for the linebackers. Linebacker is a very weird position on this team. First, here's a few of the guys who we'll be looking at. We'll go into more detail on some of them in just a second. So first off, we have to assess our own linebacking core. Starting with Devon Kennard, a captain in his second year with the Lions, former New York Giant, and he's been solid. Nothing spectacular, but he's been a good player for this team. Is he a guy that we want to build around? That's a question mark. He only has 2 years left on his deal, including this one, so we'll see. Inside, there's Jarrad Davis, who has broken out this year. He has been incredible. Tackle-wise, similar to his first 2 years, but he's been a tackle for loss machine, getting to the quarterback, leads the NFL in forced fumbles. He also only has 2 years left, though, so we may have to bring him back next year. Definitely a guy who we're looking to re-sign. And then the second-round rookie out of Hawaii, Jelani Tavai. He's improved every single week. He's gotten to have a bigger role every single week on the defense. Leads the team in tackles for loss with 13, 3 sacks, 56 tackles. He's locked up for a while as well, so that's pretty darn good. First up, we're going to be looking at the University of South Carolina senior, number 9 right there, Shakir Killings. He is a speed rusher, really solid pass rusher. He had 9.5 sacks this season, including 7 of which were an SEC play. So he can go up against the top offensive tackles, and he can get by them with ease. His speed off the edge really sets him apart from some of these other linebackers and edge rushers. Now, this guy is not an edge rusher. He's more of a prototypical off-the-ball inside linebacker, and he's one of my biggest sleepers in this draft class. Devon Mann, projected to go in the 4th round out of Rutgers. I'd say a second-round talent is about where he should be. Really solid run stopper, very good in run support. I think he needs to improve on his coverage, and if he can do that, he'll be a really good linebacker in this league. Now we're going to be looking at another off-ball linebacker who I would say is an upgraded version of Devon Mann. He is projected to go in the 1st round, probably the later half of the 1st round, but he is an extremely good player. Giovanni Chester out of Washington State. I would say he's an upgraded version of Devon Mann, and if you really need an inside linebacker and you want to get greedy, Chester may be the move. However, I feel like it makes more sense for a team to wait for Mann in the 3rd or 4th round, but looking at Giovanni Chester, he is incredible. Phenomenal hit power, phenomenal in run support, sort of like Mann, not the best in coverage, and those two players are very similar, so that's why I feel that a team's sort of being gritty for themselves if they go with Chester in the 1st round. Now, looking at the edge rusher position, this guy is extremely dominant out of Alabama. Darquell Hyder, projected to go in the middle to late portion of the 1st round, so he should be available for where the Lions are selecting. He's another guy with incredible speed off of the edge, very well-rounded. I think he needs to work on his block shedding, his power moves a little bit more. But if he can improve at some of those areas, he has the physical gifts to get after the quarterback. Now, looking at a more run-stopping linebacker, most of these edge players are quarterback hunters, so I'm not really sure if this guy will fit in the NFL, but that's fine because he's not NFL draft eligible yet. He's only a sophomore, and he'll have another year to grow at Oklahoma State. His name is Monte Clarence. Very solid frame. And I think if he can get stronger, improve his block shedding, improve his physicality, I feel like he could be a really good pass rusher. He is for run-stopping abilities, but if he can get after the quarterback, he'll be a really, really well-rounded player in this league. And now looking at the defensive backs, as the Lions secondary has been a mixed bag this season. They've had some standout performances. They've also had some pretty bad performances. And if you look at the Lions' tackle leaders, most of them are in the secondary, which is sort of weird. Outside of Jarrad Davis, probably their top 5 tacklers are in the secondary, which is very strange. But one guy who's a staple in this core, Darius Big Play Slay. He's had an incredible season, 8 interceptions, which leads the NFL. He's been a tackling machine, which isn't necessarily a good thing if you're a corner. But look at that contract, only 2 years left. including this one. So the Lions are going to have to either pay him off next offseason or potentially let him go, which will definitely hurt. Now, looking at the nickel corner, Justin Coleman. He's under contract for another 3 years after this one, and let's just say it's not cheap. He got paid the big bucks this offseason, so he's a guy who the Lions are sort of forced to build it around, but he's a good young player, and I think he'll fit well with this team down the line. Now we have Rashawn Melvin, who's been very solid this year, 3 interceptions, and he's only on a 1-year deal, though. So, do the Lions want to bring him back? He's been good this year. Do they want to let him go, let Justin Coleman have more of an outside role? And then there's some talented young players outside of those guys, Mike Ford, Amani Oruwariye, Tease Tabor, Jamal Agnew. But the one I want to highlight is Oruwariye. 5th round steal, in my opinion, out of Penn State. He's a guy who I think the Lions should look to give playing time to next year. And now looking at the safety corps, starting with Tracy Walker. He was upgraded from normal to star development back in week number 2. And he's definitely had a nice year as the full-time starter. 90 tackles, 2 interceptions, both of which were pick sixes. He's under contract for 3 more years, so life is good with him. And then his backup is Will Harris, the 3rd-round rookie out of Boston College. I think the Lions should definitely look to get him more involved next season. Looking at the strong safety, Quandre Diggs, a Pro Bowler last year, been a little bit more quieter this year, but he is under contract for a few more years, so the Lions are sort of locked into him, and I think he's definitely a guy they can build around. And then his backup, and I say backup, but Tavon Wilson's gotten a ton of playing time this year. He's been one of these sub-linebackers, so he's been a tackling machine. Hasn't really played any of the snaps at safety. He's done great at sub-linebacker, but he only has 1 year left, so maybe the Lions need to go searching for a guy who can replace him if he's not re-signed. So the first defensive back we're going to be looking at is a homegrown product at the University of Michigan, Chantrell Meeks. Very balanced in coverage, not going to make the big plays, only 2 career interceptions in college. And the Desmond King rule applies to him. The Desmond King rule is quarterbacks do not throw the ball your way. Your stock dips a little bit because of it. Desmond King, of course, had a dominant junior year at Iowa. No one threw the ball at him when he was a senior. Fell to the 5th round where the Chargers picked him up. And in his 2nd year, he was a first-team All-Pro. So I could see something similar with Meeks, just he'll be picked a lot earlier. And now, looking at the top of the draft, these 2 corners who I'm about to show you could go in the top 5. Starting with Kirby Sanders out of NC State. Incredible ball skills, as you could see by the interception earlier. He has really good hands, played wide receiver in high school, and was recruited as an athlete. Even played a little bit of receiver during his freshman year at NC State. Really good in man coverage as well. Not great in zone, that's where he needs to improve. But if he can get better there, I think he'll be one of the best corners in our league. And now, Wyoming has a top prospect again. They just had Josh Allen go in the top 10. Now they're going to have another top 10 prospect here for cornerback position. Junior Kenya Hayman, what's up? His name is Kenya Hayman. I just had to make that joke. He's 6'4", he has nice length. Sort of similar to the last corner we looked at, Kirby Sanders. Very good in man coverage, pretty solid ball skills, not quite as good as Sanders. A little bit better in man coverage, but neither of them are great at zone. So, like Sanders, if Hayman can improve in zone coverage, he'll be a really, really solid player. Last 2 guys we're going to be looking at are both underclassmen. They won't be in this year's draft. Starting at Florida State, we have safety Devin Lillard. This is my Tavon Wilson comparison. He's played a ton of sub-linebacker at FAU. He led them in tackles as a redshirt freshman and as a redshirt sophomore. And yes, he is eligible for the draft. However, he's already decided he's staying in school, which I think is good for him. He's a little bit raw, but I think a year with Grove can really propel him. Currently, I see him as a projected 3rd rounder, but I think he could improve his stock to a late 1st, early 2nd round guy with his tackling and run-stopping instincts. And then last but not least, at Louisville, he is a true sophomore, and he has definitely flown under the radar, but he had a really underrated season this year. His name is Jordan Neckwood. Very solid player. He's extremely physical, pretty good in press coverage as well as man. And his ball skills need to improve, though. Does not have great hands. Does not have an interception. Isn't most athletic. But I think if he can improve his ball skills, then it doesn't matter that he's not the most athletic guy on the field. And I think he can be an interesting, probably 2nd round pick next year. So now I think we have to look at the standings. Starting with the AFC, Browns and Patriots are the only teams that have clinched. Texans are the 3 seed. Broncos are a 4. Texans, Colts, and Jaguars, or just the Colts and Jaguars, sorry, are all the 5 and 6 seeds. So, it's definitely some surprise teams at the top. And at the bottom, Ravens, Steelers, Titans is the 3 worst teams in the conference. Definitely would not have expected that. If you're looking at the NFC, the Panthers have been great this year. They're looking good. Eagles, Rams, Packers, Falcons, and Bears. That's the current seedings. Lions, 1 game back of a wild card spot at 7 and 8. So what needs to happen for our Lions is, obviously, we need to win. The Bears need to lose. And the 49ers need to lose. No head-to-head tiebreakers on either the Bears or the Niners, since we split the season series with the Bears and have not played the Niners. So it'll take a miracle for us to make the playoffs, but it's still possible. And I have some good news for you guys. Matthew Stafford is back. He suffered a rib injury last week. Tom Savage came in. It was ugly. But Matthew Stafford is back. He will be playing Week 17 against the Green Bay Packers. So there is still hope in Detroit, Michigan.